You've probably seen this before. A little gap in the baseboard right down in the corner where two walls come together. And you did what everybody does. You looked at it, you decided it was cosmetic, and you kept walking. I mean, who wouldn't? I want to show you what that gap is actually telling you, because it isn't the only one. There's also a door that sits a little funny in its frame and a skinny silver of tile at the edge of a shower. You've seen all three of those in pretty much every house you've ever walked through. And all three of them are telling you the same thing. Nobody's ever told you what it is. Hi, I'm Abigail Anderson. I'm a realtor here on Washington's East Side, and I grew up around a builder and an interior designer, which means I've been getting dragged through half-finished houses since I was about 7 years old. And the thing I've never been able to unhear is this: the guy who cut that trim is not the guy who framed the wall behind it. It's a different trade, different truck, probably even a different month entirely. But they were both hired by the same builder, they were working off the same schedule and the same budget, and they were getting checked by the same person, or not getting checked by the same person. So when you see something slopey on the surface, what you're really looking at isn't really a defect. You're looking at a sample. It's a sample of a couple hundred other decisions that got made by those same people under that same pressure. And every one of them is now sealed up behind drywall, where nobody is ever going to look at it again. And that's the part that gets me, because the finished work is the only piece of the house you're actually allowed to inspect with your own eyes. Everything else, you're just taking somebody else's word for it. So let's read the part you can see. 3 things, and you can find all 3 of them in one walkthrough. Start with the baseboard, and here's why. Baseboard is one of the last things that go into a room. By the time someone's putting trim on, the money is mostly spent, and the schedule is usually blown, which makes trim a pretty honest record of who was still paying attention at the end. So go find yourself an inside corner, down at the floor where 2 walls meet. In most houses, that corner is 2 45-degree cuts pushed up against each other. That's called a midder. And on install day, a midder looks perfect. Then the house goes through one winter with the heat running. The wood dries out, it shrinks a little, and that joint opens up into a little V you could spot from across the room. There's another way to do that corner though, and it's called coping. You run the first piece straight into the corner. Then, instead of cutting a matching 45, you carve the second piece to the exact profile of the first one, so it wraps over on top of it, kind of like a puzzle piece. It takes longer. It takes somebody who actually knows what they're doing. But when that wood moves, it will move. A coped joint has enough overlap to give a little and still stay shut. So a corner that's opened up is telling you something pretty specific. Either somebody took the fast cut on a piece of work they knew you'd be standing right in front of, or it opened up later and nobody ever came back to deal with it. And honestly, those are the same answer. Both of them are about who was checking. Now think about everything else that was on that same schedule. Installation that got stuffed into a tight bay instead of cut to fit around the wiring. Air sealing around a can light. Blocking inside a wall for a grab bar or a heavy mirror somebody is going to want in 10 years. Every one of those is a place where fast beats right and nobody is ever going to find out. That gap isn't the problem. The gap is the receipt. Real quick, before the other 2, if you're looking at houses right now and you want a second set of eyes on this stuff, this is what I do. There's a link down below. And if you're not in the Seattle area, drop your city in the comment and I'll connect you with an agent that I actually trust out there. Okay, number 2. You'll walk through 30 doors on a Saturday. You'll check exactly one thing about all 30 of them, which is whether they close. That's the wrong thing to check. What you want to look at is the gap around the door. top edge, both sides, in the trade, that's called the reveal. And it should be even all the way around. About 1/8 of an inch, a little thicker than a nickel. Almost nobody looks at it. And I get why. It's a gap and there's nothing there. Your eyes just slide right past it. So you have to make yourself look. Stand square in front of the door and follow the gap with your eyes all the way around. If it's wide at the top and tight at the bottom, or tight at the top and wide at the bottom, that's jam, is probably not plumb. Honestly though, there's a better version of this test and it takes about 4 seconds. Push the door to halfway open. Take your hands off it and just watch what the door does. If it drifts open on its own or it drifts shut on its own, that usually means the door isn't hanging in a plumb opening. Gravity is literally showing you that the frame is leaning. And here's the part that matters. That's not a door problem. Doors show up from a factory, square in a box. What you're looking at is the opening, and the opening is framing. Somebody set that jam, saw that it wasn't plumb, and made the call that it was close enough, which tells you nobody was checking the walls too carefully either. And walls that are out of plumb are the reasons cabinets end up with shims you can see, and countertops get scribed badly, and the tile field runs off as it climbs the wall, and the stair rail wanders on you. All of those are expensive to fix, and every one of them starts right here at the gap you weren't even looking at. A door doesn't tell you about the door, it tells you about the wall. Third one, and you could do this in a bathroom or at a backsplash, doesn't matter which. Everybody looks at the tiles itself, the material, the color, the pattern. I want you to look at the edges instead, because the layout of the tile got decided before a single piece went up on that wall. Somebody dry lays it first, they measure, they work out where the cuts are going to land, and then they shift the whole field over so the cut pieces come out as big as possible in the least visible spot, and ideally even on both sides. That's the layout. It's maybe an hour of work and nobody bills for it. And this part isn't my taste, by the way. There's an actual industry standard on it. It says center and balance the field. Don't make cuts smaller than about half a tile, and put the cuts out at the edges where you're least likely to be looking. So when I walk into a shower and there's a full tile on one side and a 3/4 inch silver on the other, right at eye level on the wall you stand in face every morning, that tells me nobody did the layout. Somebody started in the corner and ran the tile until they hit a wall. Same story with a backsplash that dies into the corner on a silver, or grout lines that stop lining up the second the pattern turns a corner. And here's why tile in particular is worth your attention. Tile is late work. It goes on top of everything else, which usually means the same crew on the same day, getting supervised by the same person that did the waterproofing behind it. The membrane, the slope, the seams in the corner. Now, I'm not telling you that part is wrong. I can't see it. You can't see it. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What I'm telling you is that the only sample you're ever going to get of that crew's judgment is a part they knew you'd be staring at. The tile you can see was the easy part. Now, I have to be fair here, because this is the point where people take it way too far. One gap is not a verdict. Houses move, trim shrinks, a door sticks in August and behaves itself in November. Somebody's kid ran a laundry basket into a corner 2 years ago. Any one of these on its own is just noise. What you're actually looking for is agreement. Trim, doors, and tile are 3 different trades working 3 different weeks with 3 completely different set of hands. So, all 3 of them come up short in the same house. Those aren't 3 separate mistakes. That one's management decision showing up 3 different times. And that's when you start asking harder questions about what's behind the drywall. That's when you pay for a thorough inspector instead of a fast one. 1 is noise, 3 is a policy. Okay, Here's the thing all of this has been building towards. Every house is a budget with walls around it. Somebody had a number, somebody had to decide where that number went. Some of it goes where the camera can see it, the fixture over the island, the waterfall edge on the counter, the wide plank floors, the tile everybody photographs. And some of it goes where nothing can see it. The coped joint, the extra blocking, that hour of layout, the flashing detail. The guy who got sent back to reset a jab before the drywall went up, built to impress, spends the money where you'll look. Built to last, spends it where you won't. And neither one of those is a crime, by the way. There's nothing wrong with a beautiful house. I sell beautiful houses and I love them. But you're paying one price either way and you deserve to know which one you're getting. The problem is that you can't inspect the invisible half. You never get to. So you read the samples instead, which honestly is what your gut was already doing when you walked past that corner and something in you went, You just filed it under cosmetic because nobody ever gave you a better word for it. You're not judging a house by its trim. You're using the trim to read the parts nobody lets you see. So next time you're standing in the house, 3 things. The inside corner down at the floor, the gap around a door and let go of it at halfway, and the last tile at the edge. That's 2 minutes. No tools, and you don't need anybody's permission. And if all 3 of them agree with each other, you didn't find a cosmetic issue. You found out how the whole house got run. Fair warning though, once you see this, you can't unsee it. If this was useful, go ahead and subscribe because I do this every week on houses here on the East Side. I'm Abigail Anderson, realtor here on Washington's East Side, and I'll see you in the next one.